What movie did you see last night?
Oh my gosh. I went to see A Complete Unknown. I had to go support my man, Timothy Chalamet. Because, nominated for the Oscar for A Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
I did leave this theater hating Bob Dylan. And that's how I know Timothy Chalamet is a good actor, because I'm in love with that man. But I hate
Have you guys
Bob
seen it?
Dylan now.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, I saw it maybe like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, like he did an incredible job, because to your point, you do hate him after you watch the movie. Like you guys would also hate him.
I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait.
Oh my God.
But it's so good. I think the girl that plays Joan,
Yeah. Beautiful.
Beautiful, and like such a great role. Johnny
Yeah.
Cash is in it.
Hot.
Oh.
Like obviously,
Yeah.
and he's hot. The music is great, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's also like, you'd think it would cover his whole life. It covers like maybe 3 years of his life, which is so
crazy.
funny. And like, there's no like, this is the height of his career moment. It's very much like this is just a story about a guy.
Yeah.
And he's not really that good of a guy either. And like, it was just so funny. And the whole time I'm like, this guy, his arc, it's the exact same as someone else's. And that person does reggae. Like, they do songs about injustice and like all this stuff. So I'm like sitting here thinking, I'm racking my brain. And it's not until like we leave the theater and I'm talking to my friends that I went with. And I was like, Bob Marley.
Right.
This man is a Bob Marley variant. And I was talking to Danny earlier, and she said, and dare I say, doing it worse. I said, right. But at the end of the day, Bob Dylan, not my guy. Do not like him.
Right.
I will
He
say the
seems
movie,
dirty.
Yeah. The movie was very interesting, because I didn't realize like folk music was a cult. Like it was a folk cult.
Yeah.
Okay. And like I think that's a really interesting like
that makes so much sense to me,
interest
actually.
of Americans.
Yeah.
Especially at that time.
It's the culmination of everything.
Yes.
Because I think folk music is like synonymous with like the silent generation.
Right.
And it's very much in that like, we don't want change kind of thing. And like, they did go through trauma with like the Dust Bowl and World War II. So it's like, we need to remember. Yeah, we need to remember that these were hard things.
Yeah.
Whereas like, you have this new wave of like people that are in the 60s, Vietnam War. They're like, peace, love.
He's still alive.
Bob Dylan's still alive.
Yeah.
And still
83.
touring.
Oh, that's right.
He's
my
still touring.
Yeah.
My parents saw him like 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
They said he was terrible.
Yeah.
They said they didn't even recognize him, and they were like, "Is this actually Bob Dylan on stage?"
Even the like most diehard Bob Dylan fans are like, yeah, his voice sucks. It's just like his lyric writing.
Yeah. But you're also 80. Like, what?
Well, they see a lot of like, that's what they do. They go to concerts of like people from the 60s and 70s. Yeah. But they said he was awful.
Wow.
I believe that.
That's I believe that as well.
I mean, Billy Joel and
also,
Stevie Nicks.
Not aging well, and we know my theory about men who are not aging well.
Right.
It's because they mistreated women. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And like, if you've seen this movie, you'll know. Like
right.
Yeah. But yeah, it was so good. I really liked as well the story, because it also focuses. It's about Bob Dylan, of course, but like Woody Guthrie and Bob Seger were other Pete Seeger were other like really big influences on his life. And so it follows like their story of almost like mentoring him and kind of trying to help him like with fame, but also he like got to levels of fame that they could never even comprehend.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting, like that struggle of like the new generation, the old generation. It like the story in itself is so timeless.
I also thought it was so interesting because like he wasn't like all these biopics, they're all like they had an alcohol problem, they had a drug problem.
Yeah.
No, this man was just weird.
He didn't have a drug problem?
Not that they showcased.
I too thought that he had a drug problem.
I just assumed.
Me too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, they never like showcased any of that because I was really waiting for it. I was like, oh, he's gonna like fall into some stuff. No.
Interesting.
No.
He had a not viewing women as people problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's the problem.
Really,
It's
borderline
worse than drugs.
narcissist.
Yeah, worse than it is a drug of a different kind.
Okay,
Right.
but let me tell you guys about my experience. So we go to the 9:40 showing, which is already past my bedtime.
That's insane.
People in front of us, this woman talking the whole time.
No.
Loud.
I would've
Oh my
hit her.
gosh.
Why are you there?
No, right. And I'm telling you, everyone in my row, what's going on down there? Like, please watch two people get up and walk out because this lady was so loud. Like in the movie, like it's loud. You're like playing music. They're a band, whatever. But this girl, it like gets quiet for a second. And she goes, yeah, dead ass. Okay, girl. Yeah, speak your truth, but like quieter.
Not here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the AMC guy comes in and he's like, what's going on? And like talks to him for a second. Nope. Woman's still yapping.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my
Still
gosh.
yapping.
I'd be so mad.
No,
How old
yeah.
was this woman?
I don't know, but it looked like they were on a date. Like her
Oh.
and this man, but they were like older.
Oh.
I'm going to give her like 50.
Goodness.
So either way,
Dangerous
it was an
age.
experience.
They stopped caring.
Yeah. It's,
Well, should we get into it?
Let's do it.
let's do it. Hey, welcome to Always Booked. I'm Olivia.
I'm Emily,
I'm Hannah.
I'm Danny.
and today we're talking about The Wedding People.
Woo.
Goodreads' favorite book. Last
Oh,
year.
I did not know.
Really?
Well, one of them. It won one of.
One of the
it
awards.
won the
yeah.
fiction, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think it came out last year as well. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
newer.
very new book.
Yeah.
It's definitely along the lines of the Emily Henrys. I don't think it meets Emily Henry like status.
Yeah.
but
It's less romance
definitely-
than that.
Yeah, but it's definitely still like thoughtful literature.
Yes.
Or
Mhm.
like trying to be.
I do
Yeah.
think it's thoughtful literature.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great book club book. That's what we read it for book
100%.
club. Plenty of things to discuss in this book.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So shall we get into it? I'll give a brief little recap.
Yeah. Give us a synopsis.
Okay. So The Wedding People, in short, if you read it and you just don't remember, or if you didn't read it and you're hoping our podcast helps you pass some test, here's the gist. This woman, she was married and then her husband left her for another one of their colleagues in the college. And she had this whole dream of going to this really fancy hotel in Newport,
Yeah.
Rhode Island.
Yeah.
And he never wanted to go. So she booked herself a few nights in this hotel. And her whole MO to going to this place is to kill herself in this hotel. Trigger warning. Sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah.
before
And
all
actually,
that.
before trigger warning for that, for some other things, for infertility, for other issues. So
Yes.
before you listen to the episode, look them up if you want to, or read the book. Trigger warnings.
Trigger warnings for some things here. But she goes to this hotel, and this hotel happens to be sold out for a wedding. And she's like, ugh, this is so annoying. Someone's having a wedding while I'm trying to, end it all. So annoying, whatever. So she accidentally befriends the bride and ends up going on a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
And she becomes part of the bridal party and like kind of falls in love with the groom, and like it's a whole situation. And all that to say, a little messy.
A little messy.
A little messy. We do have a third act. Husband comes back, professes his love.
Right. As men do.
Yes. And then we have a breakthrough epiphany, and it's all great. So very easy read.
It's a great story arc. It's like it follows a
Yeah.
template, but it's fun and interesting.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I think it was you that said it. It felt like a romance book, but with plot.
right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the perfect description of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I also think it's different in the sense that like I feel like a lot of romance books coming out like push like spice and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And this was
agree.
a very clean book. Should
Yeah.
anyone be interested? Like language wise, no, but like spice wise,
Yeah.
very clean book.
Yeah. No spice, but actually like the sexual content, although there was very little,
Yeah.
the sexual content in the book, the way that it was portrayed was also so interesting to me because it
Yeah.
was so different and more about like
Discourse.
discourse among like the sexual, and then also being aware of like your sexual preferences and how that plays
Mhm.
into dynamics of relationships. Like
Yeah.
it was very different, and I liked that element. I was like, oh, this is a different take on like sex in
Yeah.
a book. I do think it may be a generational thing too,
Yeah.
because I do think this book, like it felt like it was for an older audience
Yeah.
than us.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't find myself in the book, but I like watching it. It's like watching Nancy Meyers, the old people doing their thing. It's
Mhm.
fun to watch, but I'm not in it.
Because Phoebe is how old? She's 40?
40.
I think she's 40.
40s.
Oh, well, that's not that old.
Yeah.
No,
No,
but
you
I think
keep-
she's like late 40s.
Yeah, and the bride is
No.
like early.
The bride's younger, but
30-ish.
Gary. Yeah.
I thought she was more like early 40s because she could
Oh
like
gosh,
still try to
these
have
people
kids.
seem like
Yeah.
so ancient to me. You're right, though.
Yeah, she could still
They're
have
pretty
kids.
young.
She was still trying.
yeah.
The
So
way
she has
I
to be
read it
early
was like
30s.
a big generational
No,
gap.
and then
I agree.
Gary is big He's giving like Pierce Bronson. Like he's old.
Maybe that's why.
Is he though?
I was thinking.
I don't think so
Oh.
either. But I'm just saying like because
like
him
her
and Lila
age.
have a huge age gap.
Yeah.
But I think her and Gary are closer. So I bet he was probably like late 40s, early 50s.
Gary was Goldstein. What's his name? Kerry Washington and
Fitz.
He's
Fitz.
He's
Yeah,
presents
it's
to
like the
me.
same.
Oh, fair enough.
So maybe it's
That's
not
fair.
a generation. I thought I read it as you guys are older and this was a taboo thing to talk about in your
You were
generation.
thinking like just go with it, like one of those ones,
I was thinking, yeah,
like that rom-com.
Because you keep saying divorced old ladies.
because they're divorced. That's how I read them.
Oh, that's interesting.
Maybe it's just my perception.
That is giving that.
It's just what it
Yeah.
seemed
And
like.
that's okay.
I was like, you guys are old, bitter ladies.
Right. Fair.
And there's plenty of things that have happened to them to make them
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way.
right.
I
Anyway,
agree.
so I'll erase
Okay.
everything I just said.
Yeah. Fair
Keep
enough.
it.
Love.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But anyways, yeah. So you said general feelings.
Yeah. Or did you like it or not like it?
It was an easy read.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about it.
Me
Like,
too.
I'm probably not going to think about it too much.
I liked it for what it was.
Yeah.
Good book club book.
Great book club.
Easy
book,
to
yeah.
read.
Agreed.
It was entertaining. It did feel like TV movie show to me. Like movie show? When I was listening to it, I was like, yeah, I want to see what happens on the next
Right.
episode sort of situation.
Premise was so ridiculous to me that that really was a fixation point for me, because the whole time I'm like, your man left you, so you said I'm gonna end it all.
I know that was
I
tough
could
for me too.
never.
Yeah.
It
Girl,
was tough for me.
stand up.
I
I
know.
can't remember. I think
Anyways.
we were having the conversation though. Like she was probably so messed up in the head because of all the failed IVF, her job
Yeah.
situation,
She had a lot going
her
on.
book, her cat died. Like
Nothing was
and her
going
husband
on.
left her for
Parents.
someone that they worked with that he swore he would never do.
Who also
Like,
had a child.
who also had a child that she could like. It was I understand how all these layers like compounded.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day though, it does boil down to like her final straw though was like a man leaving her.
Yeah.
And then also like what gave her life again was like a man wanting her.
Exactly.
And like I think that is kind of where like the generational disconnect is.
Maybe that's why I think it's like old people. I'm like,
yeah.
right.
And
what?
like and I do understand how like
I
that,
also would
agree.
like to say, like, I agree. And I judged her harshly for that. And I also would like to say, I've not been in the place, like her mental health or depression
sure.
place to be
Yeah.
able to relate to it. So I do feel like maybe I'm judging it too harshly because I don't know. I've not experienced that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will also agree with that. I probably am also judging it way too harshly, but like that is what I
But that's
latched
the
on
feeling.
to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it is a generational thing, I
And-
think, as well.
I understand what you're saying because she does get this new breath of life, so to speak.
Mhm.
But she did decide not to kill herself pre
She did.
him.
That's true.
Right.
So
Well,
it's not like he saved her from that act.
and I think at the end of the day, she didn't really want to anyway. Like,
Even her therapist was
agree.
like, "You're not the type to do it,"
right.
which is
Which
I
is
don't know.
crazy for your therapist to
Yeah.
say that, I think.
Right.
That's a different
Yeah.
issue.
It is kind of unhinged. I didn't know what the book was about at all going into it.
Me either.
So when I started it and it was
Same.
like, she's prepping her vacation to die. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that
What
was a
is
crazy
going
twist.
on?
I was like, oh, this is about to be dark.
Yeah.
It wasn't that dark.
It wasn't
Yeah.
that dark, but I appreciated it.
Yeah. I want to know what y'all think about Lila, the bride.
Mm.
Because
Insufferable.
Yeah.
Charlotte, Sex and the
Narcissist.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a rich girl raised by rich parents,
Right.
not attached to reality in any way.
I thought the funny elements of the book were done in such a clever way. Like I love the idea that her dad was a garbage king and then she ends up with
Yeah.
like a guy who works with people's like bowels. Like I think that's
Yeah.
so funny. Like
Yeah.
I thought like the poetic justice within the writing I thought was done so thoughtfully. Like
Yeah.
genuinely.
I think of Gary being like, I've seen so many of these people's poop.
Yeah.
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 To like diagnose them.
Right.
Yeah.
I think when I finished the book I said this is a book of like by someone who's gone through like a lot of therapy
Mm-hmm.
because of the
Yeah.
way that it's written and like the point that she's trying to make about life and like your mental health and like all those
Yeah.
notes. Like it's definitely someone who's had like professional
I think so.
either help like themselves or has like sat through sessions and like understands that process of like going through your mental constructs and breaking them down and then getting better, hopefully.
Yeah.
A lot of dead people in this book.
Wait, what do you mean?
Dead people.
Everyone is dead. Everyone they know is dead.
Oh.
I was like, what do
The
you
wife
mean?
is dead. The dad's dead. The other dad's
Yeah.
dead. The mom's dead.
Yeah.
Everyone is
And maybe
dead.
The
that
cat's
too is
dead.
why I thought these people were older.
I agree.
I was like,
Fair,
you're
I
at the point
see.
of your life where
Yeah.
like people start dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they were like freak accidents, not freak accidents because like cancer.
Right. That's
kind of a
true. It
freak
wasn't like
accident.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Maybe that was meant to be the thing that the common ground between
All of them.
I do understand. I do feel for Lila though when she's like, I latched on to Gary because he was there in
Right.
like your moment of need, and you do feel that's
For
kind
sure.
of like a green
Mhm.
light situation.
Mhm.
That was my only thought. I was like, oh man, this is green lights all over again. And so she fell into this, and I think there's something to be said about like knowing yourself and
Mhm.
like you don't have to follow through. I really liked that. Like
Yeah.
you can change your mind.
And I think you made a point before we started filming that this isn't like a feminist book
Right.
because of the whole like loses yourself because a man finds herself because of a man. And I agree. But then also I think it can be important because so many of the women in this story are stuck in a situation that they don't like because they're adhering to what they think they have to do as a woman in this culture and society. So in that way, it is like, no, this is a cautionary tale. This is showing you what women deal with and do and the choices that they make because they feel they have to.
I'm so glad you could articulate that because that's where I was trying to go and I didn't have the words.
I also do want to clarify the whole like her finding herself because of a man thing as well. Because to your point, I don't think she really found the resolve within herself to not die. Also, her plan was objectively stupid, which was also hilarious.
It
Like,
was
that
she was gonna kill
funny.
herself
Yeah.
with
the
their cat medication,
Right.
Yeah.
like so funny. I loved that. I thought that was
It
like
was
such a funny
funny.
twist as well.
Yeah.
Like you brought your cat pills to kill yourself.
That smell like
Right.
tuna.
Yeah, that
smell
smelled like
like
tuna.
tuna.
Like, so funny. But I think when she met Gary, he gave her like a hope that there was more to
Yeah.
live for.
Right.
Like maybe it wasn't him, but like someone else could want her.
Yeah.
And she could have like banter. So I think what he represented to our feminist minds
Yeah.
now is just kind of like silly because I don't think we think that way. But I do
Yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
It was just hope for a
Yeah,
life.
it's just hope
that could
for
exist.
life.
And also, it's kind of crazy what happens when you're in a situation where you're like, none of these people know me. I have no history here.
Yeah.
Because I think
The
that's
person
a
she
very,
became.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's very freeing because I think of like the hot tub moment when she meets Gary but doesn't know he's the groom.
Yeah.
And she's like,
Basically like
says.
propositions him. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, hey, I have nothing to lose.
right. And
Yeah.
then you also see her like internal struggle of like, oh my God, I did this and now he's about to reject me. And so she like jumps in and she goes, you're with someone. Okay. And
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
that was so the female experience, I feel, because
Yeah.
she's like, I'm going for something I want. The moment she feels or sees any kind of rejection, she immediately
You
fills
build
in the
those.
blank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay,
To
never mind,
guard
never
herself.
mind.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like such a really good description of like what it feels like to be a woman
Mhm.
too. Cause I'm sure men feel that way too sometimes, but
Yeah.
I feel like it's very prevalent in conversations I have.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
So I really liked how that was portrayed.
Me too. And going back to the Gary of it all, I really liked Phoebe and Gary's relationship before they get together at the end because she was pining after him a little bit. They did have some tension, but she very much was like,
Not in
"You're
an
getting
inappropriate
married.
way.
I'm
Yeah.
not. This is not the man for me."
Mhm.
And I really
And nor
liked
was
that.
he. Like he
Yeah.
didn't cross boundaries either.
I feel like that's usually not how it goes.
Even after she found out about what's his name? Jim
Jim.
and Lila, and she was like, I'm still gonna respect their wishes.
Yes.
Like she wasn't gonna orchestrate anything. She wasn't gonna force anyone's hands.
Yeah.
And
finding out that Lila didn't even want to marry Gary.
Yeah.
Right.
She didn't do
And she
anything
didn't
with
say
that.
anything. I would have been like, Gary. 'Cause,
Right.
Okay. Also,
Or even to Lila, like, hey, you said this, Lila. Because she didn't even bring that up. She's like,
Yeah.
all right, you want to live in denial, live in denial.
100%. Also, in my head, I was picturing I cast Gary as Chris Pine. Like now, like
Old
the way,
Chris Pine.
old
Like him
Chris
now.
Pine with the beard, like looking like scraggly because he has a beard. He's like a
yeah.
doctor or whatever.
I
And
see
then
what I
when
wanna
he
see.
shaves it, that's when he looks like Chris Pine from Don't Worry, Darling, and he's sexy. And then I couldn't help. Maybe it was because her name was Phoebe, but I do, and because I wrongfully placed this location in England because I read the Cornwall and I immediately assumed like Cornwall, England. And so I thought this was like all British people, which also made it like so much funnier to me, like reading everything.
Yeah.
Because I like pictured everybody coming with like Cockney accents and like just a random collection of people. But I cast Phoebe Waller-Bridge as the main girl, Phoebe.
How many things have you casted her as at this point? Do you think?
Nothing.
You're wrong.
I haven't cast her in anything
Okay,
recently.
roll the
RSVP
tapes of all the
Sam.
times that Danny has said.
No, I reference her a lot because I think her, like, all the shows she writes, like, her characters are really interesting. And I do think, like, this character had her voice in, like, Fleabag, for example. Like, it really is.
Never seen Fleabag.
No, we can't. Oh, yeah. And we were
Fleabag,
talking
the
about
hot
this.
priest.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. That's really the only one that I've cast her for. And she's old. She's like 40.
Correct.
So she's like the right age.
And I do,
Anyways.
it was crazy. Okay, so many feelings. At the beginning, I liked how it was jumping back and forth between her present, like, depression to what got her there with her ex-husband, Matt, because it gave me anyway, like, a reason to be there with her. I wasn't depressed, but, like, I hated that guy because of the way he treated her. And you can also just see, like, their marriage devolve over time. And it wasn't in, like, a crazy, I felt like it was a very relatable way that can very easily happen to, like, any marriage. Like, it's the monotony of life. It's failed expectations. It's disappointment. You stop talking. Yeah, like, those very normal things led to this moment of her, like, self-destruction, which was, like, yeah, that's relatable to everyday
Leaving
life.
the cat dead.
Hey, and you know what? Kudos to her. She was
That
like,
was crazy.
well, she thought she was gonna die. She's
Yeah,
like, whatever.
that's
Somebody
true.
else can deal with the
Just let
cat.
it decompose here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I guess
anyway.
that's like very like picturesque of like where she was mentally.
Right.
She was like,
Unhealthy.
I'm not here.
Yeah. And then you just hate Matt. I hated him anyway.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Same.
Yeah, he sucked.
Right.
He sucked.
When he
left
came
her.
back, I was like,
That was
okay.
also just like too realistic. Like, he's like classic man in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with my new toy and I can't have
For
you anymore
sure.
because you're not pining over me. So I have to go get you back.
And like to be fair, yeah, they did have like a genuine relationship at one point.
Yeah. I mean, they were
So-
married for years and
Yeah,
Yeah.
So it's very much like I had a shiny new toy, made me really appreciate like the fact that we really truly had something.
Right.
Sorry I didn't work at it,
Right.
you know? And at that point it's too little too late.
Yeah.
And so it does pose a question like, hey, if you guys would have talked sooner, would you have gotten to this point?
Right.
right?
And like how much communication is important in relationships.
Right.
But also I think it's one of those things, it's like be with someone who is going to grow with you
Mm-hmm.
and like accept you in all phases of who you grow into, because it sounds like they grew up and they're just different people.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's an excuse.
It's
Yeah.
not, because everybody grows into different people.
Right.
And to your point, you're supposed to grow together
yeah.
and accept all the new layers of who that person is. I don't
Right.
even think they communicated enough to know who each other was
right.
at that point.
Because I think Lila's problem too is that like she was a person stricken with grief, but she understands that she's no longer really that, like she's that person,
Yeah.
but she's growing into a new, stronger version of herself that doesn't want to grow with Gary.
Right.
Like realizing that before you got married, important. Glad
Yeah.
that worked out for them.
Crazy to marry your dad's doctor.
Insane.
Also
agree.
crazy to marry him when you're harboring resentment that he didn't save your dad.
Yeah.
Also crazy. Also,
What's she doing?
Also,
Like,
getting
what
married
actually made you want to do
Yeah.
that?
just to spend her dad's money.
Oh,
Shoot.
oh,
Another
that's true.
layer.
I forgot about that, though.
Yeah, her
And
dad,
she felt like her dad would have approved of him.
yeah.
Mhm.
That was a
Yeah.
huge element. I forgot.
I think
Yeah.
that's also a big thing though.
Yeah.
To talk
Common.
about like
For sure.
getting stuck in that.
Mhm.
Well, I think I love that Phoebe and Lila's narratives were actually versions of the same thing. These are like two women who were doing things to like appease the men in their lives,
Yeah.
right? Like everything. Phoebe genuinely wanted Matt, and Lila like genuinely wanted her dad to live.
Mm-hmm.
And when they both like couldn't get that reality, like they just try to find control in other ways.
Yeah.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
how they're dealing with grief.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like one is giving it up and then the other is going crazy super control freak, you know?
Yeah. Different
I
expressions.
I have a question,
Yeah.
like a perspective question. Do you guys relate, or could you experience that much like paradigm shifting within those 5 days? Because it's essentially Phoebe's story.
Yeah. the
Could
week
you
that
do
she's
that
there.
in 5 days?
I guess anything's possible, but I don't. It's hard to think that way because I don't know.
I think that is such a traumatic, like whether she follows through or not, like mentally she's in a trauma triage kind of headspace.
For sure.
And so I feel like everything is magnified. And so like every second of her day is zoomed in on those 5 days. So like, yeah, I do think so. I do think that kind of paradigm shift, especially because no one knows her. Again, there's so much time by yourself in your mind when
And
no
also,
one knows who you are.
You've removed yourself from everything that's familiar. Like which is so important, I think, in any trauma situation or any like heavy situation. Is like get out of what you know
perspective.
to see that there's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole world that exists still. There's people, there's things outside this situation. So I think, yeah, to your point, like maybe in that, for sure.
Yeah, she got out of her context. And I think that also helps her be like, okay, I'm actually not going to do this.
Yeah.
Because context is everything. And she was just kind of like stuck in this cycle of like, this is my life. And I'm surrounded by all the things that have failed, all the things. And like, even at the end, she decides that she's going to go back to Missouri just to leave, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So like a fresh start is good and healthy for the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be mad at a week-long wedding that's not destination, really? It was down the road from them.
To have to
I
go?
thought it was
Yeah.
destination
No, because
She talks about how
because people paid to get there.
yeah, but they live like an hour away, or like it's close to where they all actually live. And they were like, this doesn't count as a destination wedding. This is in our neighborhood or whatever.
Oh, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
'Cause
I
the
probably
bride-
wouldn't be if I was rich.
Yeah.
as a bridesmaid. I'm just curious.
As
'Cause
a
her bridesmaids
bridesmaid,
weren't-
I'd be
didn't have
like,
money,
you're
right?
joking. Like, no.
And they all seemed like they had great attitudes about it. Better than I would
But
have.
did she pay for everything?
I thought she paid for
Oh, did
everything.
she?
Yeah. I think you
Okay,
had to
then
pay
yeah.
for the travel to
Sign
get
me up.
there. Yeah. Because she booked the hotel and she even offered to pay for Phoebe's room.
She did.
Mm.
So I think she
Mhm.
was covering everything.
Yeah, I think so as well.
But yeah, no, I would have been pissed. Be like, what do you mean we're staying at the Gaylord Texan
Yeah.
and I have to pay?
No.
Like, that's
I'm
essentially
not
what
staying.
I'm equating
Yeah.
that to that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's also kind of interesting the end whenever she's like walking back in, I guess. Or no, she's leaving and she's talking about the receptionist and how like fast things change
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
new wedding came in, and I was like, oh man, I know exactly that feeling. Like we've all been there when it's like you're out somewhere for a convention and then it's the end and they've like already flipped it and they're starting something new.
Yeah.
And so like that's got to be like, oh man, something closed, new beginning. And I know she feels that way because she describes that, but I think that's such a good way to end the book because we can all really relate to that
Yeah.
feeling of like going through something really big, monumental, it being over, and you're like, oh, life goes on.
The world is
keeps
the world-
spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a good way to like portray that.
yeah.
Like there's still so much more. I really enjoyed the ending.
I
a
did
lot.
too.
Me too.
I like a book that is like, that doesn't tell you everything that happens in their lives,
I agree.
but you can draw your own conclusions. You have enough context and information to fill in the blanks. So there's closure, but you can fill in the blanks.
yeah.
That's the best to me. I like that.
And you know what I appreciate about this book that I don't get from standard like romance books? There wasn't like a dramatic. I mean, I guess the husband coming back was a little bit dramatic.
No, you're right. Like
But in-
miscommunication or something.
Yeah, like miscommunication trope where someone runs away and is missing for a while.
You're right.
I also
I'm so tired of that.
I
Yeah.
also fear because they're older, they have perspective. Like Gary, when her husband shows up, he just leaves.
Yeah.
It's not that he like holds feelings against her, like hates her, is mad. I think he's like, life happened. Like
this is your husband.
this is
ex-husband, whatever.
ex-husband, right? Like work it out. I have my own life to deal with, and
Yeah.
like he knows grief, he knows loss, he knows like family, and so he has a perspective that's just a little different. And I do really appreciate that.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
And even when Phoebe, what's the ex-husband's name?
Matt.
Matt.
When he's like, "Oh, I came back for you," and she's like, "No."
Yeah.
sorry."
Yeah.
He was just like, "Okay, okay."
Right.
Yeah.
Very mature people. These people are.
And I like that.
Me too.
I like
think
that
that's
too.
a
It's
breath
different.
of fresh air for sure.
I agree.
The
One of-
theatrics and everything.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think we do get in that danger, just like literature more broadly, if all your romance books are like heavy turmoil up and down. Like
Mhm.
it's nice to have kind of an example that's kind of level.
Mm-hmm.
you don't have those violent wishy-washies, will they, won't they kind of
Something
situations.
else that I really liked the book addressed is who you become around the people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I liked it how it addresses even Gary, like in his like being a man, how when he was with Lila, he just kind of took a back seat and like turned his brain off and just kind of like let her, but that wasn't a way to live. It was just a way to cope.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
and even like addressing all of those aspects of even like within masculinity, I thought was so interesting. Then you see her husband crying in the car for the first time in front of her, like things like that, where like these people have experienced so much pain in their life, and these men really are only being allowed to express it in certain ways.
Yeah.
And like in that moment, I think even Gary and Matt become versions of like almost again like kind of like her and Lila doing this, trying to find control in their own ways.
Yeah.
This was like Matt and Gary trying to find like help for their grief in their own ways.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, I love to say like everyone's entitled to ruin their life. Like you can deal with life the way that you see fit, but like I love that you saw those different perspectives of navigating life.
Well, and also to your point from the masculine perspective, like this is what women experience a lot, but the same for the men. Like Gary's whole journey of losing his wife and having grief led him to the point of marrying someone he didn't want to marry either. Like because he didn't feel like he could process or express the emotions, or Matt never cried, like all those things. It's things we don't understand because we're women, but like the culture and the construct for men too is messed up and leads to things like this as well.
Right.
Life's too short to make choices that you don't fully stand behind.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think the book is interesting because it addresses the fact that sometimes it's easier to make those choices than it is to confront what you want.
Yeah.
And I love that was like the question posed even from her at the very beginning of why are we afraid to say what we want? And I like that the book explores that in such a unique way. And with like, honestly, it's kind of like the guise of a romance book, because I think it is genuinely so much.
It's not
more.
a romance
Yeah,
book
it's
to
so
me,
much more. I thought it was so interesting. Because these are like very complicated situations as well that they're all.
Well, I also
through.
think like of Gary, and he's like, no, it totally makes sense for me to sacrifice this choice because I think Juice needs like a mother figure.
Yeah.
So like the sacrifice you'd make for the sake of kids.
Yeah.
And at his cost, you know, like he's like, I know I'm not into this. Like, I know this isn't right, but I think it'd be good for my daughter. That's hard.
Yeah, for sure.
You throw kids into the mix, that's hard.
I think it's very common.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like people staying in marriages and they don't want to be in that.
100%.
This exact scenario.
Yeah.
Juice was my favorite character.
Yeah, she was the
Just
best.
crazy.
Anytime she was a scene, I was like, this is my girl.
She's just like such a teenager.
I love
going
her.
through her own grief and like all that
Yeah.
too. Like, yeah, she was crazy when she got all drunk
Yeah.
and was barfing. That was so funny.
One of my favorite moments of the book was when they're on the boat and they have the funeral for her like Neopet, essentially.
Yeah.
Right.
I loved that moment. I thought that was so good.
Yeah.
And it is also so sad, or at least for me, like to see Phoebe try like be a mom.
Yeah.
And like that was sad.
Oh,
Because she's not able.
Yeah.
We should talk about that, because that I feel like is a really hard point of contention in her and Matt's relationship.
Yeah.
And like this sense of failure she feels with not being able to conceive, I think was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't really define you as a person. And like it feels like it, but she got to mother in such a different way. And I just thought that was beautiful too. I felt for her.
Especially after Matt left her for a woman that had a child too. That's when I like really lost my mind. I was like, you didn't just cheat on her. You chose a life with a family that she felt like she couldn't provide for you. And to see her, get the opportunity to like be a mom and even process it. Because at one point she says something. She doesn't say like, I would have been a good mother, but she like thinks through that like, oh, I could do this. Like I could be a mom and I could do a good job at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they talk about adopting.
Yeah.
And she's like, I totally could do it. And I loved having that turned around for her.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't know you, girl, but you deserve it.
Right. We're rooting for you.
Yeah. That was very touching.
Great. So many things to talk about. Excellent book club book.
Yeah.
Like
Excellent book
I
club
don't
book.
blame this Goodreads award they got.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Many discussion points.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think there will be different opinions about it too. I'm excited for that.
for sure.
for sure.
It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be as well.
It was such an easy audiobook too, because that's when I just listened to it. It was so easy. I listened to it at work, and it was just, yeah, you could follow it really well, but
Yeah.
it's still posing some really great questions.
Yeah.
It was funny. I had the fun.
It was
the,
fun.
The car getting assaulted.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
I forgot about that.
Actually, that was so funny. Because what did he say?
Yeah.
The car got fucked.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? You were in an
No,
accident.
like-
and they're like,
he was
no,
like, no.
literally. So, man,
Yeah.
that was so unhinged. That's what it was. Because there was a bit where many unhinged things happened in a row.
Yeah.
It was like that.
Yeah.
And then the panda sex thing
Yeah.
for the
Yes.
Bachelorette.
Oh my gosh, so
Yeah.
I was
funny.
like, this is what's going on,
Yeah.
actually.
I forgot about the pandas.
Yeah, me
Yeah.
as
That was
well.
weird.
The Bachelorette was crazy.
It was crazy.
Right.
Yeah. That
What
actually,
a book. Like, so easy to read.
So easy.
Mhm.
Everyone, just take a gander. It'll take you like a weekend. You're fine.
oh my gosh, I was also cracking up at the woman who is trying to like fix her relationship with her husband, and they're like sexting.
Yeah.
The way that she was speaking about it to like her friends and to
Right.
Phoebe, she was like, he just texted me to blah, 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 and
Yeah,
now I'm
yeah.
supposed to just walk in there and look like
Right.
Yeah.
it was just
No.
like hilarious.
And you know what? We need to talk about the ensemble itself, because they were such a character in and of themselves.
so much.
Because she also mentioned, she was like, these people, they're going to walk away and judge you no matter what. Like,
Mhm.
they're going to go away and say things like, this wedding was so expensive. I can't believe they didn't get married. And I can't believe I wasted all this money. And she's like, you just got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, these are people that are going to talk. And in general, people are going to talk.
Right.
So you just have to move on and know that you made the decision for you and that it was the right decision.
Right.
So I really liked that as well.
Yeah, me
me
too.
too.
God, the people were funny. I even like Jim when they get high.
It was
And they're writing.
funny.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? And they're trying to write.
Yeah.
So
it was a good group
good.
of characters.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Man, I forgot about the car. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
love that
So
scene. That was so
They were like,
funny.
what do we do? Tell the hotel. Tell them what? Like,
Right.
Or go.
Right.
That was so
what are you
good.
supposed
So
to
good.
do?
I love it.
Yeah, that was really funny.
That was
Well,
Her job sounds fun at the end.
Yeah,
Oh,
staying at the
yeah.
mansion.
Yeah. Or yeah, the manor.
I get it. Probably.
She got a dog.
yeah.
Love.
Think
Love
she
that
was
for
really-
her. I want to do that.
It
Yeah.
looked
Me
great.
too.
Right. I actually have a family friend who does that. She like goes to
In Rhode
different-
Island.
Well, she was upstate New York for a while. And then she went to the San Juan Islands for a while. She was in Mississippi for a while. Like, she just
Staying at large properties and caretaking them.
mhm.
That's amazing.
It was so cool. She's like hosted weddings at these properties, and like she rocks.
Yeah.
She says it's the life.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Anyways, well,
I would recommend this book. I think it's
Oh.
an easy read.
So yeah, absolutely. I also loved all of the older literary references in this book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me want to like, because I feel like if you read all of them, it feels like this is kind of like a longer version of all those.
Yeah.
But yeah, she references Charlotte Bronte a lot. She references
Jane Austen.
right, because
Jane
that's her job.
Austen.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I like Dante's Inferno. I think she made a
Mhm.
reference to that. Like just a lot of really cool
Yeah.
older reads. And I like when books have a like an expert kind of edge to them. Where
Yeah.
it's like someone who's
I love books for book lovers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It's
like,
a nod to the reader.
Yeah, and especially like she made a point when she was like, I don't understand when books are used for decor. Books are meant to be read.
Mm-hmm.
And because like the books are facing
I
like,
loved her
page
Her
out.
act of defiance was like flipping the
Yeah.
book to spine
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I was like, you do what you got to do.
No, for sure. I just love that.
Yeah.
I love
agree.
being a reader.
Me too.
Okay, so our shout out is for Fantastic Collection. So they host different fantasy events, and I went to their Starfall Ball in Colorado with Atticus last year.
Mhm.
That was like the first fantasy event that we went to, and like cosplayed and stuff, and it was so fun. They create an environment that is like safe and welcoming for all people, all types of people, and then you just honestly have a blast. Like it's just such a fun environment.
Having an event here that we'll be at.
Oh yeah, Dreamers and Readers in 2026. It's like a giant book con / balls. So they're doing a ball every night. Then they have local authors, indie authors, vendors. It's just like a giant book con. It's going to be a lot of fun. But that is at the Gaylord, the Gaylord, Texas. Yeah, so that'll be awesome. And tickets are still available. So go buy some if you want to go. And we'll be there too. So we can say hi. Love it.
Great.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us. You know where to find us. Instagram, TikTok, our website, YouTube. Sign up for our newsletters. We always send out super fun deeds. If you come to any of our events, that's where you can find the drive links to all the photos that we take. And yeah, we're just really excited on what we're up to this year and hope to see you there.
Love ya.
Get booked.